Okay guys, you might wonder why I'm showing you a tier list by Rush. Saw this 2.3 tier list on Twitter and I loved the look of it. It is quite clear to understand. You have the runes attached to each of the champions, and I just thought that it was a really lovely way to present all of the information in one go, and it was very easily shared on social media or on any of the different platforms. So I wanted to put this in here because when I show you my tier list, the new revamped way that I'm doing my tier list, you're going to see that it was heavily inspired, if not format completely taken from the way that Rush has done his. I didn't want to copy it, but it's just so good that I wanted to do something similar. Obviously, my opinions are going to differ quite heavily from Rush, but you'll notice that my tier list looks very similar to the way this is presented. And honestly, I just wanted to give credit because this is where I got the idea from. But this is also Rush's tier list. I'll link the tweet that he put this tier list out on down below. It's a lot easier and more easily readable on his tweet. Yeah, so this video is supposed to be my final update for patch 2.3 before we get the new patch. I don't think the new patch is massively big, so there might be some changes, but I don't envision there's going to be a huge amount. But of course, next week I'll republish once I've got a better idea on the new patch. And this is pretty much the only thing that you're going to need to get yourself acquainted with the meta and get better at Wild Rift. But there is just one more thing that you might need.
And the answer is Raid Shadow Legends. Boom.
So I added my own little bits of sound effects there. I hope the intro was as epic as it was supposed to sound. But as you can see, today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. And I have actually recently only just started playing the game. It's a game that I had seen loads of adverts for. Obviously, it's kind of everywhere right now. It's kind of a bit of a cult status game. And I didn't really know if I'd enjoy it, but I downloaded it and actually it's quite relaxing. I've been playing it in between Wild Rift games, especially when I've had a bad game and I just want to take a bit of time to reset. This is a game that I'll just go and play on my phone for a little bit and it won't be too bad. One of the great things about the game, which you can see I've got here right now, is that in the campaign mode, they've actually got really cool bits of lore. So the game actually has a story, which for me is always a bonus because sometimes these games don't have that time invested into creating a really cool world, but Raid Shadow Legends has got that, and actually it's been really interesting to read through some of the lore as you're going through the campaign, which is great. Loads of stuff coming to Raid Shadow Legends this month, including new champions, a new rotation of the Doom Tower, and you're just in time to get Chinoru for free, who's really good in the Doom Tower. If you click the link in the description or use the QR code on your screen, you'll get her along with energy refill, XP boost, 200,000 silver, and 1 ancient shard. So all of that will be waiting for you in the inbox, which is up here on the top left-hand side or top right-hand side of your phone. So if you go to the inbox, you should be able to find all of that if you click the link in your description. And you can also find me under the name Excoundrel. I'll be creating a clan. So for those of you that are sticking around on Raid Shadow Legends, I will be creating a clan and you guys can come and join it. And let's climb to the top together.
Yeah, what that guy said.
You know you've made it when you've been given a Raid Shadow Legends advert for your channel. That's when you know you've made it as a YouTuber. And do you know what, guys? I feel like I've made it. I feel like I'm now a fully formed YouTuber. But you know, look, these things I don't do them very often on the channel. I don't remember the last time I did a sponsored video or an integration in my channel. So they're not things that I want to shove down your throats, but they are things that I do want you to know keep my channel alive and going. The G2A sponsorship and this particular sponsorship, you know, massively keep this channel afloat. So you know, if you feel like picking up the game and giving it a go, getting to level 10, that really helps me out. And I'm obviously playing a little bit of it in my spare time as well. It's a pretty fun game. You know, it's one of those games that I would happily spend time on just chilling when I don't have to think about my teammates running it down. Anyway, this is my tier list integrated into one easily readable graphic. I will also link a tweet that I've put out with this tier list. If you go to that tweet, you can download the image, do whatever you want with it, zoom in on it, etc., etc. I would recommend that you screenshot your phone if you're watching on your phone, and you can then use that screenshot to zoom in on particular pics if you're interested. But hopefully it's relatively legible. What I'm going to aim to do for the next version that comes out next week when we have the new patch is put runes in. I'm also going to put slightly thicker borders around champions, so they're more easily legible what they mean. But essentially, if I just explain what this means, green borders means it's good in all situations. This means there are very few really big counters to that champion. Of course, I'll give a better description when I write, like, you know, the runes, and potentially put like a symbol next to it to mean like tank, carry, etc. Like for instance, tank Gragas is why Gragas is S+ tier, not AP Gragas. Red means it's played by, you know, when it's played by a skilled player, it's going to get that much more effectiveness. That wasn't a sentence. Sorry, it's like 10 past 12 here. I'm knackered. Red means if you're a skilled player, you're going to get a lot of value out of this champion. And a skilled player playing this champion might make them feel a higher tier than they're currently placed. Like a good Teemo player can actually be quite oppressive to play against, even if Teemo as a champion kind of sucks. And yellow, you won't see it as frequently, but it'll be around the place, is a competitive pick. It's rated highly or put in its position because it's more likely picked in a competitive scenario than in a solo queue scenario, although it still remains a good solo queue pick. Something like Ziggs mid is a hyper important pick in competitive, although it may not get seen as much in solo queue. Anyway, should we go through some of the sort of the talking points? Start off with the Baron lane. I believe Fiora is the best Baron laner in the game. She has almost no bad matchups. Very few, anyway. She counters Garen, she counters Gragas, she pretty much counters any tank. She's almost impossible to play against with Grasp of the Undying. She has got a ridiculous range on her first ability, and a good Fiora player can take over games. Fiora is, in my eyes, the best Baron laner out there. After that, Garen and Gragas tank formats are both very strong. If you build them damage, you're going to reduce their effectiveness. Both tank Gragas and tank Garen are both very strong. Camille, again, is okay. I would say that Camille's better played in the jungle now, but she's still an incredibly good Baron laner in the right hands. Malphite is just solid, rock solid in most scenarios. And Renekton remains a good pick right now, especially if you're going down the Blade of the Ruin King build. In A tier, there are things like Akali. Akali's definitely not as strong Baron lane as she is mid right now because she lost some armor, as I said earlier in the patch, and that's meant that her Baron lane matchups have got a lot worse. Wukong is... I'm still figuring out whether Wukong's good. I still feel like Wukong's better in the jungle. His early laning phase is quite easily abused by a lot of the matchups that you see above him. Riven is okay, but she loses out to pretty much every Baron lane matchup above her. A good Riven can definitely win the lane, but she's pretty meh into a lot of the matchups. Like a good Garen will beat a good Riven because Garen like turbo stomps Riven. Lee Sin Baron lane has been creeping in, and I feel like we are drawing inspiration from traditional League of Legends where Lee Sin top has become a thing. People are now starting to realize, but wait, Lee Sin in Wild Rift is just better than Lee Sin in PC, so why can't we play him Baron lane? And yeah, you're probably starting to see some Lee Sin Baron lanes pop up. Kennen is unironically a good Baron laner right now, and also good in almost every scenario. Like, there are very few top lane matchups that Kennen really struggles into. Things like Fiora, Camille, AP Malphite, AP Gragas, those kind of things can be an issue for Kennen, but he can play relatively safe and he's always going to be useful to a team. So why he's pretty good in most scenarios. Aurelia is way worse Baron lane than she is in the mid lane, and that is primarily due to the fact that her matchups are bad. And then below that, you've just got a cohort of champions that are meh. Like, they're in B tier, they're okay. Like, you can pick them and you can win a game. Like, Vayne top is okay. I've put a red ring around her because obviously a skilled Vayne player can do really well with her. Vayne top's okay. She's all right. Jungle, Lee Sin. I used to be Lee Sin and Fizz at the top, but I just feel like Lee Sin is just that much more consistent and better. I think Fizz, the hype at the start made him like feel really strong, but he definitely has some weaknesses. People have shown that you can invade if Fizz goes really low in the jungle, right? Especially if he doesn't get a really good pull. So like invades he can be very susceptible to. Obviously, you have to look at the priority of your lanes before you make any of those kind of decisions, but he can be susceptible to invades. Doesn't mean he's a bad jungler. He's still an incredibly good jungler whose level 5 is nutty. Kha'Zix is great. Insane pick right now. Evelynn is still good and Camille jungle is good. Then you've got the likes of like the Wukongs, the Vys, and the Jarvans, who are just solid jungle picks, who are also good in most scenarios. Olaf, I underrated him a little bit. I think Olaf is still a good jungler. In competitive, you're probably going to see Olaf played a little more because like the Olaf Lulu combo is very strong. It gives the junglers more carry potential. Gragas is okay. Rengar's okay. Pantheon's okay. Shyvana feels kind of bad right now. She's weak and she relies on dragons to do well, which, you know, puts you in an awkward spot if your team's not particularly well geared for dragon fights. Riven is a kind of shitty jungler, but she's okay. Xin Zhao, I feel like Xin Zhao's a little sleeper right now because of the changes. I just don't really feel like anyone's picked him up enough yet. I don't think AP Xin Zhao's the way, but I maybe think traditional Xin Zhao could be something worth looking into. And then you just have like things like a Mumu and Ramos who are just like, they're very easily exploited in high elo, but in low elo, they're very, very okay picks. Graves feels okay right now, doesn't feel insane. I know that Rush rated Graves really highly, but it seems to be a Southeast Asian and Asian meta thing because in Europe, he just gets turbo stomped all the time. And yeah, that's the jungle, the notable picks. Mid, Diana still feels like the best mid in the game right now. Has very few bad matchups. Can really can sort of farm from range into a melee ranged matchups, and then just get into a dragon fight or a skirmish and just own with her ultimate. Irelia feels really good in the right hands. So does Akali and Katarina still, and Ziggs is a very, very competitive pick. Twisted Fate feels super good with a good Twisted Fate player. Orianna is still dependable. Galio mid is still good, as is Corki, who has been knocked down a little bit from previous, but he's still solid. Ari is a good pick. Like, she's good. She's definitely a pick that can carry your solo queue games, but starts to fall off. Zed is decent, same vein as Ari, can definitely carry, but will start to fall off later on. Gragas mid is super popular in Southeast Asia, and I see Chuli from Next play it all the time, but not something that I see a huge amount of over in Europe. Seraphine, definitely a more competitive pick, although can be played in mid lane in solo queue, but you do have to be careful. Yasuo feels decent, but not absolutely amazing. Fizz, same reason in jungle, like a good Fizz player will make Fizz feel really good. Kennen, Aurelion Sol, and Riven, all kind of like just like Riven feels like a counter pick to me, or a good Riven player into a mage matchup or whatever might feel like okay to play, but she still feels a little more risky to play in the mid lane than maybe in the Baron lane. Renekton and Pantheon feel like counter picks into things like Aurelia, Diana, maybe Akali, like any of the melee matchups. These might be good picks, but you know, like I would not blind pick a Renekton and a Pantheon into mid lane unless I've seen the matchup that I'm going into. So that's why they're down in B tier. Like they're okay, but they're not like blind pickable for me. And then Lux is kind of sugary. She's not very good. I say sugary because I'm trying to not swear because of Rupert's now picking up words all the time. But she's better in support. Teemo sucks. AD still owned by the top tier, still owned by Kai'Sa and Ezreal. But then you have a tier of like Varus, Xayah, who's really strong on Jinx, who still feels really good in solo queue. Varus, definitely a more competitive pick. Don't play AP Varus. I know that Hells loves AP Varus. Bless your Hells. I mean, I've seen AP Varus do well, but you have to play Lethality Varus. It's really the best way to play him. AP Varus takes way too long to become good, and if you miss your ultimate, you're fecked. You don't do anything. So if you miss your ultimate, you're absolutely screwed. So you have to hit your ultimate on AP Varus. If you miss your ultimate, you're donezoed. So you kind of have to hit your ultimate, otherwise you're useless. And I mean that. If you don't hit your ultimate on AP Varus, you are practically useless. Whereas, you know, with AD Lethality Varus, you can just keep spamming your first ability over and over again, and it's okay. Draven Oppressive, when played by the right person. Corki feels okay. I wouldn't pick Corki in almost every game, like just because he's an AP carry primarily, and so therefore you need to be balancing your AD AP values. Tristana, solid, especially when paired with Lulu. I think Vayne's starting to creep in. A lot more high elo Vayne players wanting to pick her up. Jhin is I rate Ashe over Misfortune now, believe it or not. I've seen some really good Ashe players, especially paired up with Braum. Ziggs, competitive bot lane pick, but not really good in solo queue. Yasuo is, I would only say, worth picking when picked up by the right kind of player. I forgot to put a red border around him, but he's definitely a red border champion. And then Twisted Fate. I put him back in because I had an AD Twisted Fate the other day in Grandmaster level, and he ran it down. So I'm just telling you, don't pick AD Twisted Fate or I'm going to be really salty. Support, not many changes here. Like Braum and Janna still felt like the best supports in the game. Nami, Lux, Alistair, all good supports. I will stand on the hill that I think Alistair is better than people give him credit for right now. I'm loving Rakan right now, but really like paired up with Xayah. I think outside of Xayah, he might be a little worse, but I am really loving Rakan right now. I think he's a very strong pick. Leona, Galio, good engaged supports. Like pickable for sure, even in a blind scenario. Lulu is creeping back in as a generally good support, especially in the assassin meta. And I still rate Seraphine. I know a lot of people don't rate Seraphine, and she's definitely more of a competitive pick, but I still like Seraphine more than Sona. Absolutely slaughter me for it if you have to, but I like Seraphine more than Sona. Sona in solo queue feels absolutely garbo. Like, every time I play Sona in solo queue, she feels crappy, and she's got a shorter range than Seraphine. Her ultimate's less useful than Seraphine. Her healing is better, but it takes ages to get there. Gragas support I've seen floating around a lot. People playing him more in solo queue right now. He feels decent, but he's much better played in things like the Baron lane, mid lane, and even jungle. Blitzcrank I still think's underrated as a good counter into the Enchanter meta. Soraka feels I just don't think she's very good. Pantheon also doesn't feel particularly appeasing as a support right now. I don't know why. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience, but he doesn't feel great. And Malphite, Annie, they're both level 5 supports. I hate level 5 supports, and I'm never really going to be a big fan of those two particular champions. Right, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope the new format was legible for you. I know it's probably small on phones, but I will try and provide a link to a tweet for both mine and Rush's tier list to ensure that you can read it. For the meantime, thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon.